We'll start the next session. This is on AI for societal impact. It's an area that is close to our hearts in MSR, and I think Amit will probably give more details. So I'll introduce the track owner. It's my great pleasure to introduce Amit Sharma, who's from Microsoft Research India. Amit did his PhD from Cornell and joined us some time back. And his research interests are in the area of causality. And recently, I think he's also doing some interesting work on mental health. And he's extremely passionate about the potential for AI to do good societal impact. And I'll hand it over to Amit. And I'm sure he'll also introduce what I'm sure is a very interesting set of speakers that we have over the next hour and a half. So over to Amit.
Thank you, Satish, for this introduction. As you said, I think at MSR, we are very passionate about having societal impact with the research projects that we do. And so we thought of, in this Data Science AI Summit, we thought of having a session focused on how these technologies can help us have social impact, right? So one thing that I think is not new to almost all of you is that AI and machine learning are having a transformative impact, right? And I just would give you one sort of anecdote or one sort of question you can ask researchers is, what are the problems in computer vision or natural language processing or even reinforcement learning, which deals with control theory and making decisions, that you could not solve 10 years ago, right? And you can even today find examples, even on phones that you use, that there have been computer vision advances that were not possible 10 years ago in 2008. There have been translation in natural language. There have been automatic generation of natural language that was unheard of 10 years ago. And similarly, in reinforcement learning, we are now seeing more and more control applications that seemed like impossible, right? So it's not just that we are making advances, it's just that we made a huge advance in our capabilities in AI, right? And so obviously, one set of events that have happened is that it's being starting to used everywhere, right? So for example, in the West especially, and in many countries, we are already seeing machine learning being used in companies to automate processes. We are seeing it being used in different types of even sort of field work, for example, education, agriculture, smartphone usage, and so on, right? And so there have been big concerns that have come up. One is, of course, job automation. So with this new technology, especially so powerful, there are many concerns about how the future economy is going to look like. There are also concerns about fairness and responsibility. If you are now deploying, for example, take the first example, deploying a technology app that helps a kid learn, you have to be really sure that whatever content that's being provided is responsible. It's not sort of learning some bad patterns that are not good for the student. And more importantly, you also want to make sure that technologies such as in healthcare or finance are being fair to all kinds of represented and underrepresented groups, right? So there's this part that has taken a lot of attention, both in the press and in recent media. This session, though, even though we understand that all of these are big concerns, we want to focus on the positive side, right? So with any technology, what impact can it have on our society? And especially as researchers and people living in India, there are many problems where it is possible that AI and technology can be useful. But I think what we want to do in this session is to just bring some perspective on what's possible and what is the right way to go about it, right? Let me just touch a few examples in this long list of problems you can think of as societal problems, in the sense that they are motivated by conditions in our society, and they're impacting us in different walks of our life. In healthcare and education, a country like ours faces a huge shortage in trained professionals. You can imagine AI being useful in helping people to deliver effective services. Similarly, in financial inclusion and governance, we have great inefficiencies, and you can think of ways in which AI or machine learning can help you be much more efficient and much more transparent in how things are. But at the same time, we also have to be asking us this question, which is interestingly what I also get asked when I talk to people who are outside this machine learning sphere. And people ask, what's different this time, right? And I hope in this session today, we also ask this question of, it's great, but what's different, right? So technology and societal impact is not a new dream. It was there when computers were introduced in the 1980s and 90s. It was there with the internet being an enabler of communication across the world. And it's still there with mobile phones and the ability for people to have a communication device right with them. If there's one thing that we have learned both through research at our group in Microsoft Research and through other ICTD work, is that technology cannot just be a fix for societal problems that we have, right? And one of the nicest sort of expressions to think about is that it can only act as an amplifier of the social forces that we have, right? So, for example, if you have a great educational institution, if you add technology to it, provide all students great apps to learn, most likely they'll do well. But if you don't, and instead you have a situation where the school is not running well, there are not enough teachers, just sort of magically introducing apps that learn would not help students as much, right? And if you're interested, there's a former researcher at our lab, Kentaro Toyama, who's written a book on this whole idea of techno-determinism. And so in this session, what I hope we can do is to take both of these perspectives and present you both active research and practical projects that people are working on in this area, right? And based on our experience, what we found, at least at Microsoft Research, is that these four things are the most important whenever you're thinking of applying AI for societal impact, or any technology for that matter. And I'll walk through this, but I think the first thing to see here is that there's nothing technical in these 4 points. It's often not about having a deep technical advancement or an insight. It's often about finding the right problem where ML can have an impact, working with excellent domain experts or people, organizations who have expertise in the problem that you're dealing with, so that you're not just sort of going blind with the correlations you find. And finally, a big focus on deployment and testing. I hope in the panel discussion, we'll also talk about what's the right expectation of success. Success means different things, especially in the research world and in practice. And especially for a thorny issue as a societal problem, there can be different expectations of what it means to have a success. So over the past few months and this year at MSR, we have started this collaborative project, keeping in mind these 4 points, where we are thinking of working and collaborating with organizations across academia and the social enterprises to actually then identify these problems where AI can have an impact. And we are very fortunate that today we have 4 speakers, some of whom we're also collaborating with, who have tackled this hard problem in many sort of different domains, right? So we have a great sort of diversity in the kinds of problems you'll hear about today and how machine learning and AI can help, ranging from how do you have better wildlife tracking and conservation, to how do you think about tackling fake news and misinformation in the society. And then also, we'll also hear both from researchers as well as people who are doing the groundwork. So at Pratham Books is an NGO that's looking to use AI for making children read books in whatever language they wish to, right? And finally, Ronak is going to talk about a problem that I think, especially in India, many of us are increasingly concerned with, which is air pollution. And how do you design intelligent sensors to tackle that problem? So through these talks, I hope we'll get both a sense of what's possible, what are the range of problems that are potentially solvable, but as well as the challenges and this whole question of how much can we expect from this new technology.